Well, welcome everybody. Good to see you all. Since we have so many people on this call today, I thought maybe we should start by just kind of going around the room and having everybody identify who they are and what they do. So, Chris, you want to kick it off?
Hey, I'm Chris Harris. I'm a CEO, and I have a background in computational neuroimaging. And that's how I joined this company. Kind of the main focus of the company is analytics, brain analytics, specifically around traumatic brain injury. Jason and Rebecca will introduce themselves. They're both attorneys working with the company and having basically developed a software product that we're going to be talking about today. And so I'm mostly going to leave this up to them.
Great. Well, Jason, you wanna take it up next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jason Kirkmans. I'm an attorney based in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but our work has been all over the country. We started doing consultation on brain health and injury cases for attorneys in 2013, and Mindset Integrated. It was a standalone company that spun out of the brain research facility in 2020. Been doing it for a fair bit, and actually Rebecca was our very first employee, so she's been the longest tenured here.
All right. And Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Shore. I'm also an attorney, helped create the CaseReview software, and I'm the VP of Clinical and Legal Operations here at Mindset.
And Jason, I was looking at your website and did I read that you were the one who kind of saw an application for this in the legal space as opposed to just working with medical professionals and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Or, yeah. Yeah.
How we started was doing direct consultation for legal teams that had a complicated brain question in their case. And we would put together experts and analyze what data or records they already had, and then recommend, the experts would recommend what additional data to collect. And then we'd bring them all together and try to make sure everyone was using the same terminology and understood, their place or their role in the evaluation and the presentation of that evidence. In doing that, we learned that our database of MRI brain data was pretty unique in that it was all collected harmoniously on one machine with the same software settings without any updates, and that really gave us a lot of power to look at some statistical analysis of an individual's brain in comparison to those normal control brain database. So and fortunately also made it so that we could scale it and do that process or that analysis on a more efficient and quicker turnaround time. So we've started doing that and offer that regularly through third-party imaging centers who distribute it as part of their evaluations of brain MRIs. We still have our legacy business that Rebecca runs, where lawyers will contact us and ask us to help sort of coordinate the entire case. And in doing that work, we also realized that a big component of the evidence that the experts were relying on and that was going to be presented in the case was prior medical records or education records, police records, any sort of earlier documentation or pre-existing documentation. And it would get into varying levels of sophistication and coordination depending on the legal team that brought it to us, but still it was pretty cumbersome to use. And we internally developed a software called CaseReview for the cases that Rebecca's managing to make it all interactive, have automated timelines presented, to be able to pull out the key evidence from across different files without having to open up multiple PDF documents, for example, and then that over to the expert that was going to review that particular material so that they didn't have to spend a lot of time getting oriented with it. It's been really beneficial to our practice, and we decided recently, we've got it in such a good place, we should make it externally available as well.
Is your core technology, not the sort of case management technology and all that, but do you have basically a technology that's able to provide brain scan data in some more granular detail than is otherwise available, or is it that you're better able to organize that data or present that data? What is it that kind of distinguishes what you do?
Do you things? Yeah, the thing that really brought me to the company, as I said, my background was in the sort of computational neuroimaging side, was that Mindset does have this really superior product for analysis of brain data. So MRI data from the brain are fed into the software product that Mindset has. Qluminate and Quantify are the two main offerings in this regard. And from that, we can extract information about the various functional regions of interest in the brain, over 100 of those, and then 48 white matter tracks that interconnect those regions. So basically the wiring of the brain. And so Mindset does that in a way that really nobody else in the world can. And that database that Jason talked about earlier is kind of one of the keys to that, being able to really compare an individual subject brain to a very well curated database that's then calibrated to the scanner that the MRI scanner that their data are collected on. So we can generate all of the data, and then we have this platform that, courtesy of largely Rebecca driving the development of that product, we now have the ability to really help organize all of those records and all of the other imaging and case records as well through CaseReview.
So an attorney would come to Rebecca with a case, and she would help. How do you work with an attorney? How do you help with them on this?
So they'll contact us basically saying, I've got a case. I think maybe we should have imaging on. I'll ask for some background. We'll talk through kind of symptoms, how long it's been since the accident, things like that. And then turn around if it looks like a good case to potentially have neuroimaging on. We'll help coordinate the MRI, pick a facility that they can send their client to, depending on whether it's a civil case or a criminal case. There's different logistics involved in transporting inmate clients and help them through all of that. We get the imaging center to send us the imaging directly. We process it. We have the report produced. We send it to a neuroradiologist. I get all the records from them and we organize them within CaseReview. They get all of that information and then we help the expert of their choice basically utilize all of that information prior to a call to go over the results. So then that expert has all of the client history, prior history to the accident or the incident events, and they have a timeline of basically all the events that have occurred, any premorbid conditions, and the imaging and the reports from us and the report from the neuroradiologist.
So what's the best way to proceed with walking through this product? Is it something you want to show? Do you want to talk more about it?
Rebecca's got a good demo site there that she can bring up. The thing that
I
really
think I
is
have
awesome
one.
about this software is it means that, everybody comes into the room prepared for the case. All the experts have the information at their fingertips. Attorneys that may not have looked at the case for a year have everything right in front of them, including the timeline, all of the motions, everything else that's happened in the case. And it just provides instant recall and all the documents in the right place and able to, everybody access it and be on the same page when they're reconvening to discuss the case.
So basically what we do is we open a
So
case.
this is a demo site. I just saw the little thing flash demo site, meaning it's using demo data or something as opposed to
Yes,
using real. Yeah.
correct. So within our demo site, we have basically a test civil and a test criminal case. So if I go into the civil case, all of the records are basically going to be medical records. They all get uploaded into what we call sources. From there, they have OCR and all of the other information pulled out. We create what are called events. So any pertinent information that you want to pull out from the document, you create an event and it will summarize. It'll tell you the event title, the date that it occurred. You write the description, you put the author, and then you have the ability to put case tags. Case tags can be anything of your own creation. We do have default tags, but you can also set your default tags. And then it'll hyperlink directly to the record right here. So when you were working on a case and you've gone through and you've reviewed all the records and 6 months goes by and you go, oh, I don't remember what was in there, you can go and directly click in to the record. It'll pull up right where you were at. You can see it's highlighted with a orange box on the pages that you selected. And so you can scroll right back through your original documents that you had reviewed. As I said, you have the tags. So we have set of default tags here: legal record, education record, forensic record, medical record, imaging, etc. You can create custom tags. So I created blood test results, oncology, sleep tests, and a tumor board tag. You have the ability to add and edit all of the tags here. So you have pretty vast ability to create almost more than you could use in a case, and of varying degrees if you want to pull out every witness that you have or any specific expert that you have listed. everything that you add as an event will pull up on the timeline. So you can click into them directly here, but you can also scroll through, see exactly kind of what the outline of your case looks like over the timeline. You can kind of scroll through them like that as well. You can download the timeline. You can download your table of events. You can select only specific events. So if I only want the imaging, I can specifically just pull out the imaging. It'll produce a new list, and I can download just those selected events. Those will all download as PDF files. As you scroll down, if your team wants to all keep track of deadlines together, you can add deadlines within the platform. Just again, putting your details, the date, kind of the events that you'd like to highlight. You can add research documents. We have the ability to pull out either a Blue Book or an APA citation. Just basic ones, of course. It's not going to go do your law review homework for you, but it'll pull out a basic Blue Book citation. You can add notes that everybody can see across the team. You can add communications. So if you've called somebody and you want to make sure everybody's aware of the phone call conversation, you can add it here. It'll tally the amount of that is on the call or email or whatever type of communication you've put in. You can add pleadings as well. And then if you have discovery documents, so you're sent 500 files, you want to upload them all into one spot, but you don't want to deal with them right now. If you hit upload discovery files, you can mass upload a set of documents, and then you can pull them all into sources from there. That's kind of the brief overview of the software.
When you were first bringing in the medical records, I missed, I think maybe you might have said that, but when it generates is it generating descriptions and all that, or is that something?
No, you're manually creating them. Currently, we are working on an AI feature that would assist you. So it would basically do the OCR. So makes it so you can, copy and paste out of a document, but then from that OCR feature, you would also be able to do an AI component that would pull out the events for you. So that's in development, but not currently live.
Does it matter?
I expect to be live by the time of the knowledge show comes up in July, to have the first version of the AI record summary included within the.
Okay. All right. What was I just going to ask? Does it matter at all the format in which you're loading records? I know medical records will often come as like a gigantic PDF file or something with multiple sets of records in them or something.
Yeah, it
Is
doesn't
that
matter.
okay?
For the OCR, it's going to be a PDF is a better format, but you can upload other document format types. You can upload video files. You can upload audio files. So on some of the criminal cases, for example, they'll have videos from the jail. So we'll put those in just so that the expert has access to them. And those will be like MP3 or MP4 files.
Do you see this as a kind of a generic medical records case management platform, or only useful for attorneys who are working with you in some other way or working on MRI related records, or does that matter?
I don't think it matters. I've seen mitigation specialists have found it really helpful, psychologists, neuropsychologists, different neuroscientists have found it useful. I mean, in general, if you have a record and you want to put a notation somewhere of what you found in that record and come back to it at a later point, it's a helpful platform for that.
Medical records have been, what the most common record that we interact with, and a lot of times you've probably seen them, Bob, where they will bring in a nurse or someone who will do a medical summary on a Word document or Excel file that sort of goes through it, but it still then has to point to a PDF or a file somewhere that the source material would be in. And this links the two so that you can look across all the different sources at simultaneously and chronologically. And then when when an expert or an attorney or anyone is relying on a piece of information, you're not you're not sort of tempted to rely on the summary that a nurse or a third party or maybe a paralegal produced. The source material is directly linked right there, so you can pull it up and see if that's correct.
Yeah, that
It's
makes
also
sense.
been really helpful on mass torts, class action, lawsuit, any organization of large amounts of files would fit well into the parameters.
Mhm. Yep. Is the timeline generation part of it, is that being driven by AI, or how's that being done at this point?
The timeline generates automatically. If you go in and you create an event, so if I add an event, basically whichever document I pick, it's going to pull it up next to you. You have a side by side. You can type in your title, your author, your date, the description. You can select your different tags here, starting page, end page. You can select a background color or a highlighting color, and then this little include in timeline
Nice.
should automatically default to include. If you don't want it included, obviously you can select it and it won't include it. But once you hit add, it's going to populate it both on this table here and on the timeline.
Did you say you're just releasing this, or has this already been out and being
This
used?
this is already released, the AI feature, so that basically we're training AI to go through and do the records file review similar to how I would go and do the file review. That is going to be released here shortly.
And I assume this probably goes without saying, but I assume your customers are mostly personal injury lawyers or defense lawyers in the personal injury space. Is that fair to say?
So far, I think that there's a lot of application that we just haven't touched on. We've just started talking with some class action lawsuit firms about compiling their records. Rebecca's had a number of experts who brought her in to have this for the records that they receive. So not on a case that we're at all related working on for our brain imaging work, but neurologist who's worked with us on a brain case also has a spine case that they want their records organized in this way to make it easier for them, and we'll do that hourly for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask about criminal. Well, I think you mentioned criminal cases earlier on in the presentation. Is there, does this all sort of facilitate working like the lawyers working with an expert witness on a case? I mean, I'm sure expert witnesses can access, the lawyers can access it. Is there any kind of collaboration or communication there within the platform?
Yes, so you can, as Chris was saying, the different types of users, you can have editors, administrators, and then you can have reviewers. So you can limit what an expert has access to, but you can also limit whether they have edit permission. So if you have a great expert who you trust fully to go through the records and review them and add notes and things like that, you can make them an editor. They'll be able to go into a case once they're assigned to it, and then they can like do things like add events or add notes or add discussion. So like great for mitigation specialists on a criminal defense case, they can add a bunch of information. If you have an expert maybe that you don't want to have edit access, you don't want them to be able to mess with anything on your platform, but you want them to be able to view things, then you would make them a reviewer. Again, they would only have access to the cases on your platform that you give them permission to see, and then you can limit also the documents or the events that they're able to see. So you only want them to see medical records from July to August. So you're going to go in and give them access to that source, and any events that are created from that source will be the ones that they can see. Nothing else will populate for them. If you have somebody within your office, you want them to see everything, then they would be an administrator. So administrators basically have access to everything on the platform. They have the ability to add and edit tags. They have the ability to edit the default tags, add cases, add sources, things like that.
Has anybody ever asked about, or do you see any need to have this also integrate with other sort of more standard case management platforms and that kind of thing?
We've had people ask about it. We don't currently have integrations with other platforms.
Yeah, given that it was internal use for 8 years, we haven't had much need. When we first started, when we first had the need to organize these records better, we tried hacking a number of different case management or law firm management software tools to sort of suit the purposes we were looking for, and just didn't get very far with making them much more robust than a Dropbox link would
Mhm.
be. The real genesis of how this came about was we would get involved in a case with maybe 4 or 5 different experts and 10 to 30,000 pages of documents. Especially on the criminal side, we'd have to put forth a funding motion to justify the expense of everyone who was going to review it. And oftentimes the judge would say, well, we'll give you, you $5,000 for the file review. And some of these experts are $750 an hour. They're barely going to get through the table of contents before we've burned through the full funding. And so we said, there's got to be a better way. And the experts, to their credit, a lot of them were like, I hate charging for flipping through pages, and so many medical records are duplicative. And I don't like it's the worst part of doing this consulting work is trying to make sense of a mess of records that come over. And so we took a stab at, how can we make this more efficient and less cumbersome on both sides, and came up with the idea of it. And then Rebecca really took it from that infancy and made it actually usable and really saving efforts of, we'd probably have to, for our caseload, we'd probably have to hire 2 or 3 paralegals to help organize these records manually in what we're able to do with this software now.
So you've got the case consultation, you've got the case review software. Is the ideal scenario to combine those in some way, or does the software is the software fully independent of whether you're also using consulting services?
Any client that comes through our case consultation side gets a file review through CaseReview software. It wouldn't be on their own platform. So if they had their own platform, we could certainly review it and, do it on their
Yeah,
platform, but
yeah,
we do it on our internal platform.
yeah. But would it? So
And now,
yeah, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to ask is, would you see this as ever being kind of a completely standalone product where a law firm might say, I don't need your consulting services. I saw the software. I know this other firm is using it or something. I like it. It's cool. I want to use it too. Can they do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
that's what we're doing now.
That's the goal. Okay. Okay. So how do you sell it? Do you sell it on like a SaaS model, or what about document storage for if you have a large case with a lot of medical records or something? What else should I know about it?
And I think one of the things that really helped us choose to make it this externally, self-sustaining SaaS model product is talking to, Rebecca and I talk with attorneys all the time, and the number of them who, especially on the small to medium-sized firms, who feel that they are stuck in a position of having to go through the medical records or the files in advance of a deposition, or trying to, before making a motion and trying to ensure that they didn't miss anything, is where the light bulb kind of went on for me that, man, they're really struggling. The best example is we have an attorney in the same building complex that we're in. And then we were talking about it one time, and he's like, anytime you see my car appear past 5, I'm looking through medical records. He's like, that's what I'm stuck doing. And he's like, and I absolutely hate it. And a lot of times it's even re-reviewing records, because this hypothetical attorney, let's say, she remembers that there was something about a concussion when the plaintiff was 12.
Right.
And then she's stuck, 6 months later, it comes back, the case is getting moved up a little bit. And she's like, wait, where was that concussion? Like, I know that I read that somewhere. I don't think I made that up. And oftentimes when we have these legal team meetings that Rebecca runs, Rebecca knows more about the case than anybody in the room, the experts, the paralegals, the attorneys. And it's not, Rebecca's really good, but it's not just that she's really good. It's that she's also got the file open on our software and is able to pull up, it was April 24th, 2016, and it involved falling out of the back of a pickup truck.
So how does that happen? How do you find that one thing that you can't remember, but it's in a record somewhere? Is it search, or is it the tagging, the indexing? How exactly do you get to that needle in the haystack thing you're looking for?
It's both. It's searching. You have all of the things already pulled out. So instead of reviewing 5,000 pages, re-reviewing 5,000 pages, you're looking through a table that max, if you've gone through a table of 5,000 pages, you've got like 25, 30 pages of a table of pulled out events. You can quickly go through that rather than going through the hard way. And like you said, if it's a concussion, you've tagged it as like a head injury or imaging or something like that. You can sort by the tags and pull it out that way. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of sort through and find it a lot easier if you knew what the area or the time region that it's in. Like, oh, I know it was in the last 5 years, then you can scroll through the timeline and look for it that way as well.
So as we're talking, it's what would you say, 3 or 4 weeks before you're going to be showing it. And between now and then, some of the generative AI capabilities will be incorporated within it. Can you talk more about what that will mean and what that will bring to it?
Well, I think the AI component's really interesting because a lot of attorneys are using just Chat GPT or another AI tool to feed a document in and say, tell me what's important about this. And it may, it could pull up everything. It may miss some of the things, but in general, it's going to do a good job of sort of condensing the information and get better and better the more you feed it. What that doesn't do, though, is then provide you with the ongoing link and the connection to the source material in a live interactive way like our software does. So it is, you're getting the medical summary that maybe a nurse would have done previously. We have the benefit of 8 years of Rebecca doing these reviews and being able to train the AI with her experience doing this to, one, reach a level of confidence that the AI isn't going to be missing stuff or miscategorizing something. It's still not going to be perfect. It's still going to take an attorney or a paralegal to evaluate, but it's not starting at ground zero. That's a big part of what we've been doing in the testing phase is training it to be able to start off with knowing what exactly to look for and pull out of those records.
AI only gets you so far. You
Right.
need to be able to validate and verify, and we still need humans, thankfully.
Yeah, Rebecca's a pretty harsh judge. Currently, yeah, a law firm could onboard their software and have someone on their staff do it and hit the ground running. We also offer the opportunity for them to have Rebecca's team evaluate the records for them, a human summary component so that they don't have to go through all the pages themselves. And it's that sort of precision that she requires in that we're trying to get the AI to meet that level.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. Anything else that you want to show or talk about?
I'd say the one thing I was going to say from earlier that I had missed was the aspect of imaging and how our imaging analysis and how it interplays with the software is really kind of a good example of the way law and medicine or law and science interact, in that each component of the imaging analysis has a different expert or physician perhaps who's going to fit their block in the wall of what that diagnosis is. So a neuroradiologist will speak to the imaging results and incorporate our quantitative analysis of the brain data, but they don't see the patient and have any interaction with the symptoms to make the diagnosis. And so often their report will say clinical correlation is suggested, and the clinician may have a 5-minute or 10-minute evaluation with someone and say, these symptoms appear to be present, and based on that and the pre-existing data, my diagnosis is such and such. Having, if you, the average person going into a doctor's office, you're relying on the medical establishment or the product that the medical administration has for compiling those records and getting everything there. And it's really difficult then from a legal perspective to try to piece that together when those aren't complete. And so what we found really helpful is, and why it's included in every case that the lawyers hire Rebecca directly on, is the case has the full medical summary of what pre-existing records exist, what their complaints are, whatever documentation they bring to it, so that those can be handed out to all of the providers as they interact with them. So that now it's not a matter of the clinician not having the imaging report or not knowing about the prior head trauma, or maybe when they go in and review the file. And so bringing it all together is the added efficiency that I think it provides even beyond the legal, support.
Did I understand you to say earlier, or maybe I was reading this on your website, that I guess we talked about this a little bit earlier, but that because of the data that you have and the granularity of that data, you're able to sometimes see more in an imaging report, perhaps, than a radiologist might see just at eyeing the. If so, does that carry over to the benefit of the attorneys in the case? Can you give me like any kind of example of how that might carry over into a legal case? I mean, does it impact? Could it impact potentially the damages to which a victim might be entitled, or the extent of the injuries that maybe weren't immediately apparent, or that sort of thing?
I think in a TBI case, it's really strong. Is a really strong example in that the white matter in the brain, of the fibers connecting the different regions, are quite susceptible to trauma, and when the white matter is damaged, that can disrupt the ability for the different regions to communicate with each other, send messaging back and forth. Visually, that can show up as a white matter hyperintensity in certain parts of the brain, but when you get deep into the brain, there's very little visual evidence, that the tool's just not sensitive enough for the radiologist to see that the flow in the white matter has been disrupted. We measure the water molecules as they pass through the white matter, and when they're flowing optimally, we're able to indicate that. And if they start getting disrupted and they're now statistically abnormal from the healthy condition, then the radiologist is able to say, these tracks are not functioning properly. The regions they support have a purpose that relates to X, Y, and Z, functional behaviors or symptoms. And then the clinician could take that information and say their symptomology matches that profile, and there's a pretty big convergent validity that there's some real damage here.
Interesting. It's really interesting. All right. Well, anything else you wanted to demo today or talk about? Any last words? Right. Well, thanks to all of you for coming on today and talking about it.
Yeah, thanks for your time.